From the shock of 2001 to the final scenes of 2021, the war in Afghanistan became a long, brutal contest between modern air power and the oldest truth in ground combat. Afghan insurgents leaned on a mixed arsenal, some inherited from past wars, some bought through smuggling networks, and some built from scratch with whatever could be wired, packed, and buried. Before we continue, tell us, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Trust me, you're going to love this series. Lee, Enfield, the old Empire bolt gun. Wood stock, long barrel, iron sights built for patience. It served as a cheap, rugged rifle in remote hands, used in early raids and checkpoint shots. 303 hits hard at distance, accurate, slow, and unforgiving under pressure. In a war that modernized fast, older surplus still filled the gaps. SKS, the transitional workhorse carbine. Fixed magazine, folding bayonet profile, simple gas system. It existed to arm fighters reliably with minimal maintenance. Seen in village defense and quick skirmishes, 7.6239 stayed common, sturdy but outclassed by detachable mag rifles. As firefights stretched longer, volume of fire became the real currency. AK-47 AKM, the insurgency's signature. Curved magazine, stamped steel, loose tolerances that love dust. It was the default rifle for patrols, raids, and ambushes, used everywhere from Helmand to Kunar. Cheap, durable, ubiquitous. Powerful, but not precision. When opponents carried optics and radios, the answer was often more rifles, not better ones. AK-74, the lighter recoiling cousin. Distinct magazine shape, smaller caliber, flatter shooting. It served fighters who wanted controllability and bursts. Appeared in mixed caches and squad weapons. 5.45 mm shoots fast and steady. Easier to keep on target, but less common in supply. As squads formed, supporting fire needed a longer breath than a rifle. RPK-74, the squad's beltless anchor. Longer barrel, bipod silhouette, heavy magazine options. Its role was sustained suppression during breaks in contact. Used in ridgeline fights and compound defense. Higher practical volume than rifles. Useful, but limited by magazine-fed endurance. When suppression had to stay continuous, belts replaced magazines. PKM, the classic general-purpose machine gun. Long receiver, top cover, belt feed, brutal reliability. It existed to dominate open ground and cut down movement. Used in base harassment and convoy ambushes. 7.6254R reaches far. Heavy, loud, devastating, also demanding to carry. Once a battle became a trap, older machine guns returned as cheap force multipliers. RPD, the earlier belt-fed bruiser. Drum feed, long barrel, old-school heft. It filled the same suppression role with simpler sights and rugged parts. Used in hit and run attacks. 7.6239 is easy to source. Effective, but heavier and less adaptable than PKM. As distances increased, insurgents looked for a single shot that could change the tempo. SVD Dragunov, the designated marksman symbol. Skeleton-style stock, long barrel, optic-friendly profile. It existed to pick leaders and gunners from standoff, used in overwatch along valleys and roads. Accurate out to several hundred meters. Potent, but only as good as the shooter. When true SVDs were scarce, similar rifles filled the same psychological role. 7.6254R Dragunov-Type designated marksman rifles. The stand-in precision class. Long receivers, scope rails, familiar silhouettes. Their doctrine was intimidation and selective disruption. Used in sporadic harassment fire. Same cartridge, similar reach. Variable quality, some deadly, some just noise. At the close range of raids, sidearms were less status and more last resort. TT-33 Tokarev, the hard-edged pistol. Slim frame, single-action feel. Simple sights. It existed as a backup for fighters and commanders. Used in close captures and panic moments. 7.6225 is fast and sharp. Reliable, but limited stopping power and capacity. Where supply chains were messy, whatever could be fed and carried became the choice. Makarov PM, the compact Soviet sidearm. Small slide, simple blowback, easy carry. It served as an officer's backup and concealment weapon, seen in urban intimidation and checkpoint threats. 918 is common in the region. Handy, but not a fight winner. From bullets to fragments, the battlefield shifted to sudden, close violence. F1 hand grenade, the defensive fragment sphere. Heavy body, strong casing, lethal shrapnel. Its role was clearing rooms and breaking formations. Used in compound assaults and alley fights. Fragmentation radius is feared. Deadly, but risky in cramped throws. As contact became routine, lighter grenades made quick attacks easier to repeat. Rugged 5-hand grenade, the lighter thrower's tool. Smooth shape, easier distance, fast handling. It existed for offensive pushes and quick disruption. Used against patrols and vehicles in close. Reliable blast effect. Effective, but less fragmentation than heavier types. When grenades weren't enough, rockets turned a rifle fight into a crisis. RPG-7, the iconic anti-armor launcher. Tube, simple sight, shoulder-fired shock. It existed to threaten vehicles, fortifications, and massed troops. Used in convoy ambushes and base attacks. Cheap warheads, big effect. Flexible, but accuracy depends on skill and range. As raids hit faster, disposable launchers offered a quick strike and vanish option. RPG-18, the single-use punch. Collapsible tube, one-shot simplicity, minimal training. Its doctrine was rapid anti-vehicle or wall breach work. Seen in mixed caches and surprise attacks. Light and portable. Effective up close, but limited range and penetration compared to larger rounds. When riflemen needed their own explosive reach, grenade launchers became the bridge. GP-25, GP-30 underbarrel grenade launcher, the rifle's second bite. Mounted under an AK, arcing 40 mm class grenades into cover. It existed to hit behind walls and rocks. Used in ridge engagements. Simple, indirect pressure. Powerful, but slow to reload and aim. For sustained explosive suppression, automatic launchers turned cover into a liability. AG-17 Plamia, the crew-served grenade rain. Tripod mount, box magazine, rhythmic thump. It existed to deny ground and punish static positions. Used in base harassment and choke points. High volume of 30 mm grenades. Devastating, but heavy and exposed. As insurgents hunted vehicles and helicopters, heavy machine guns became the poor man's air defense. DShK 12.7 ME heavy machine gun. The classic big caliber hammer. Tall profile, heavy barrel, brutal recoil. Its role was long-range suppression and anti-vehicle fire. Used from hills and truck beds. 12.7 mm can reach beyond a kilometer. Fearsome, but hard to move. When mobility mattered, newer heavy guns offered similar brutality with less burden. NSV 12.7 mm heavy machine gun, the lighter Soviet successor. Sleeker receiver, more manageable setup. It served the same anti-personnel and light vehicle role. Used in ambush nests and overwatch. High rate, strong punch. Effective, but still a crew weapon with logistics weight. When targets included armored trucks and aircraft at low angles, 14.5 mm changed the equation. KPV 14.5 mm heavy machine gun, the anti-material beast. Massive barrel, heavy mount, loud report. It existed to shred engines, walls, and light armor. Used on technicals and fixed points. 14.5 mm is brutally penetrative. Powerful, but conspicuous and difficult to conceal. To scale up firepower without missiles, multi-gun AA mounts became battlefield cannons. ZPU-1, ZPU-2, ZPU-4, the 14.5 mm anti-aircraft mounts. Single to quadruple barrels, wide traverse, truck-mounted often. Their role was volume fire against aircraft and ground targets. Used to rake compounds and roads. Huge suppressive effect. Effective, but needs space and crew. When the fight demanded ripping power against ground troops, 23 Missile arrived like a chainsaw. ZU-23-2, the twin 23 Missile autocannon. 2 barrels, towed or truck-mounted, fast cyclic rhythm. It existed as air defense, but became a ground terror weapon. Used in base attacks and road interdiction. Extremely high rate of fire, deadly but loud and hard to hide. As cover thickened, recoilless guns offered a heavy punch without full artillery. SPG-9, the recoilless wall breaker. Long tube, tripod, backblast signature. It existed to hit vehicles and fortifications from standoff. Used in set-piece ambushes. Powerful shaped charge rounds. Effective, But position reveals itself immediately. When heavy weapons were too large, mortars gave insurgents range with packable parts. 60 mm mortar, the light indirect tool. Short tube, small base plate, quick setup. Its doctrine was harassment and disruption without direct line of sight. Used against outposts and patrol pauses. Portable and flexible. Useful, but limited blast and range. As engagements expanded, the 82E mean class became the region's most familiar mortar language. 82E mortar, the common bombardment backbone. Taller tube, heavier bombs, stronger base. It existed to pressure bases and force movement. Used in regular indirect fire campaigns. Widely seen across the AFPAC region. Effective, but accuracy depends on crew and spotting. When targets hardened, heavier bombs delivered a different kind of warning. 120 mm mortar, the heavy arc hitter. Larger tube, heavy rounds, deeper crater effect. Its role was punishing fixed positions and staging areas. Used where teams could manage weight and supply. Big blast, serious fragmentation. Devastating, but slow to move and easy to counterfind. Beyond mortars, rockets brought shock, noise, and psychological pressure in waves. 107 mm Type 63 multiple rocket launcher, the simple rocket rack. Small tubes, lightweight launcher, rapid salvo. It existed for quick barrages against bases and airfields, used in standoff harassment. Cheap rockets, quick escape. Effective for terror and disruption, not precision. When bigger rocket systems appeared, the threat became less about aiming and more about saturation. 122 mm BM-21 Grad rockets/launchers, the larger area fire class. Long tubes, heavier rockets, battlefield-scale noise. Its doctrine was massed pressure when available. Used sporadically where launchers and stocks existed. Wide area effect. Potent, but rare and logistically heavy for insurgents. As air power dominated the day, shoulder-fired missiles became the dream weapon. SA-7 Strela 2 MANPADS, the early heat seeker. Tube launcher, simple grip, minimal optics. It existed to threaten low-flying aircraft. Used in attempts against helicopters and transport aircraft. Iconic, but limited against flares and modern tactics. Dangerous, yet unreliable without opportunity. When older seekers struggled, later missiles promised more, but still demanded the perfect moment. SA-14 Strela 3 MANPADS, the improved seeker class. Similar shoulder format, better guidance lineage. Its role stayed the same. Punish low altitude. Used in scattered incidents and caches. Heat-seeking threat persists. Strong in theory, but hard to employ effectively under pressure. When Iglas appeared, even rumors of them changed pilot behavior. SA-16, SA-18 Igla MANPADS, the later generation fear factor. Compact tube. Better discrimination compared to older types. It existed to raise the cost of hovering and slow flight. Used in occasional reports and recoveries. Serious threat when functional. Limited by rarity, batteries, and training. On the ground, mines turned roads into weapons and movement into a gamble. Anti-personnel mines. The simple foot killer. Small pressure fuse, plastic or metal bodies, buried shallow. Their doctrine was area denial and terror. Used around compounds and trails. Cheap and deadly. Effective, but indiscriminate and often long-lasting. From legacy mines to scatterables, Afghanistan carried an older war's debris into a new one. Scatterable app mines, Butterf, the toy like hazard. Small winged plastic body, easy to miss, infamous history. It existed as area contamination from past conflicts, sometimes repurposed. Afghanistan's landscape has long been seeded with them. Light, persistent, cruel. To stop vehicles, anti-tank mines forced convoys into predictable routes and slow decisions. Anti-tank mines, TM-46, TM-57 type, the heavy underbody threat. Large discs, pressure fuses, deep burial. Their role was vehicle kills and road denial. Used on supply lines and approach roads. Enough explosive to cripple armor. Effective, but requires placement time and concealment. Then came the defining weapon of the war, bombs built from ordinary parts and battlefield learning. Improvised explosive device, pressure plate, the silent trigger. Buried charge, Simple plate, no radio signature. It existed to defeat electronic jamming and punish patrol routes. Used widely on roads and footpaths. Cheap, low-tech, lethal, reliable, but requires planning and emplacement. As countermeasures improved, insurgents shifted to control methods that kept humans in the loop. Improvised explosive device, command wire, the deliberate killer. Wire runs to a hidden triggerman, timed to the target. Its doctrine was precision against convoys and dismounts. Used in canal roads and choke points. Hard to jam. Effective, but demands line control and escape routes. Where distance mattered, remote detonation tried to keep the bomber far from the blast. Improvised explosive device, radio-controlled, the adaptable threat. Remote triggers, concealed charges, flexible timing. It existed to strike when opportunity appeared. Used in urban routes and staged attacks. Quick to initiate. Vulnerable to jamming, yet deadly when it got through. When fear had to be amplified, vehicles themselves became the delivery system. Vehicle-Borne IED, the moving bomb. Packed car or truck, driven into gates or convoys. Its role was breaching and mass casualty shock, used against bases, checkpoints, and government targets. Huge blast potential. Powerful, but difficult to deliver intact. Finally, the most intimate weapon of the insurgency fused ideology with explosives. Suicide vest, Body-Borne EVE, the human fuse. Hidden charge, trigger mechanism, close-range intent. Its doctrine was access, getting past security with a body. Used in crowded sites and security perimeters. High lethality potential. Effective, but morally and strategically corrosive. In conclusion, seen as one inventory, the Afghan insurgent arsenal tells a clear story. The war was not won by a single superweapon, but by persistence, adaptation, and choosing tools that matched terrain and logistics. Rifles and machine guns controlled contact. Rockets and mortars punished fixed routines. Heavy guns and MANPADS aimed at air power's edges. Mines and IEDs turned movement itself into the battlefield. The legacy is uncomfortable, but real. Afghanistan proved that modern forces can dominate skies and sensors, yet still be strategically exhausted by cheap, repeatable weapons that exploit time, roads, and human habits.